Runners can eat anything they want. Hi, I'm Ralph and welcome to The Ageless Runner. Before I talk about myths and misconceptions of running, please consider subscribing to my channel and click that subscribe icon down in the corner anytime during this video. Thank you so much. So depending on how long you've been around running, there may be some things you've heard that aren't quite right, that may be a myth or a misconception. Certainly I've been guilty of believing some of these things until I got more knowledgeable, especially when I was first starting running. But even today I kind of find myself falling back into practicing some of these misconceptions. So I thought today I would share a few of those with you and kind of what's wrong with them and what you should be doing. So the first myth I mentioned in my opener is that runners can eat whatever they want, or they can eat whatever they want and not gain weight. Obviously, there's a lot of science that says you eat too much food and you don't burn it off, you're going to gain weight. So we know that's kind of not true. But now there may be an exception. Maybe the day you run, you burn a little more calories, you need a little more because you want to resupply your body. But eating too much over time, you're still going to put on weight. And from a health standpoint, you still need to be choosy about what you're eating. We know there are runners who have heart attacks, or runners who have strokes, or runners who get diabetes. That can still happen. So we really need to be careful and watch our diets. A healthy diet when you're not running is a healthy diet when you are running. Yes, maybe you can add a few more calories because you're burning more calories, especially on the day you run, but you need to still watch your diet and watch your weight. But one of the key things I want to draw your attention to is looking at the labels on what you're eating during your run. This kind of came to light to me recently in that I had a doctor tell me to cut back on my sodium. And so I've been starting looking at labels of everything I eat a little more closely. Now, I've noticed from time to time that after a long run, I might put on weight. Now, I weigh myself every morning. I've been doing that for 10 years. Is how I control my weight. Some days I'll go out and do a long run. I go out and run 10 miles. I get up the next day and see I put on 2 or 3 pounds. I thought, well, how can I put on 2 or 3 pounds when I just ran 10 miles? At least I ought to stay the same or maybe even drop a pound or 2. But again, I started looking at the labels and noticed that some of the products I use for my electrolytes and my carbohydrates have a lot of sodium in them. For example, these Noon tablets have about 300 milligrams of sodium in a tablet. Now, the U.S. recommended sodium level is 2,300 milligrams a day. So this is 300. And then I would use a product called Tailwind in my backpack, which is carbohydrates in milligrams, and each scoop of it had 300. So I would put 2 or 3 scoops in my backpack. So between my Tailwind and my Noon tablets, I might have 800 to 1,000 milligrams just in my run. So that's 1/3 to 1/2 of my daily recommended amount. And of course, I would come home and eat, and who knows how much sodium I got in my eat. So I think that would explain a little bit why some runs, depending on how much sodium I consume, I would actually retain water and put on weight. So I've decided I'm probably getting too much sodium. So another product I use is this Ultimate Replenisher. Now, 1 packet of it is about 55 milligrams of sodium, a much lower level. So I'm going to cut back on sodium for me, but that's good for me. I'm not saying you should cut back on sodium. The point of this example is not you should go out and cut back on sodium, but that you should look closely at the labels of the products you're consuming while you run. Are they best for you and your body and your needs and your health? The next myth is that running is bad for your knees or your hips or your joints, and that's simply not true. I did a video a couple of weeks ago on joint health, how to protect your joints. I'll put a link to that down in the description. But studies show time after time that runners actually have better knees and hips than non-runners. All that activity lubricates the joints and helps keep them in good working condition. But also, running is a weight-bearing exercise. Every time you take a step when you run, you're impacting your body with the weight of your body. So that impact actually helps strengthen your bones. You can actually reduce bone loss by running, and some studies suggest you can even increase bone density or bone amount from running. So running does not hurt your joints as long as you run properly. If you have bad running form, all bets are off. You can obviously injure yourself. Another myth or misconception is that you should carb load the night before a race or a really long run. Now, I follow that. I've done that for years, often going out the night before and eating a big pasta dinner, having pasta and getting all that in me. And what I have found and what is often many people find is all that pasta in my stomach, I'll become bloated and I'll feel really bloated the next morning, whether it lays on my stomach or soaks up more water. I don't know what it does, but it's just a really bad feeling to have on the day of a race. So I no longer eat a big carbohydrate meal before a race. It's kind of recommended you should increase your carb rates, but do that slightly for a few days before the race. It'll help prepare your body from a carbohydrate glycogen standpoint, but won't necessarily burden you with feeling bloated the day of the race. Now, when I was new to running, I always believed in the adage, you should stretch before you run. Again, that's kind of a myth. Pretty well known now that static stretching does not provide any benefits, doesn't necessarily prevent injuries. There's some studies that suggest that static stretching can maybe degrade your performance a little bit, so it's not necessarily a good thing to do. What is important to do is dynamic stretching, where you're swinging your legs, swinging your arms, doing things like jumping jacks or skipping. Those types of things warm up the bodies, warm up the joints, lubricate the joints, and help prepare you for the run. I actually had a bad experience with static stretching. I had plantar fasciitis, so I was given some stretches to do by my podiatrist. So one day I decided to do a trail run in the winter, and I got to the trailhead, got out of my car, did these static stretches for my feet, took off running, and before I finished my run, I actually tore my plantar fascia muscle and had to take 3 months off from running. So be careful about static stretching, focus more on dynamic stretching, you'll have a positive running experience. The next myth is that real runners don't walk, and I certainly believe this when I started running. I would run, I'd run until I just finally got tired. Then I would walk because I just couldn't run anymore. And I always believe that you should walk and only run if you really are out of breath or you're really tired and have to walk. And certainly Jeff Galloway has blown that all out of the water with his run, walk, run method, which I eventually discovered, and that has really sparked and positively influenced my running life. So I don't know of hardly any runner that doesn't walk during a run. Now I'm sure that competitive runners, people trying to get a 2.5 hour or 3 hour marathon aren't walking, but the rest of us recreational runners, people go out and enjoy and have a good time, we're walking. I had a work colleague who was a triathlete. She actually lived in Costa Rica, and she was doing, of course, running marathons and swimming and biking. And I remember commenting to her once about, gee, sometimes when I run, I need to take walks. And she said, well, Ralph, all runners walk, all marathoners walk. I walk when I do a marathon. So don't be embarrassed about walking when you're running. I think it's important. Don't let yourself get overtired. Take those walk breaks. If you're not familiar with the Galloway Run, Walk, Run, I'll put a couple of links down in the description. Please familiarize yourself with that and enjoy running in a safe and positive manner. Kind of related to real runners don't walk is no pain, no gain. It's kind of in the same category. The myth is that you really have to push yourself. You really got to push yourself to limits to really make improvements. And that's nonsense also. Regular running at a moderate level, slight increases in distance, or maybe slight increases in speed, whatever works for you, will improve you greatly. You don't need to push yourself, don't need to sprint up hills, don't need to run long distances at a time. Just take moderate, easy gains, easy improvement, and you'll see those improvements over time. Now, another myth is that you should only drink when you're thirsty. When you get thirsty, take a drink of water, whether it's in your daily life or if you're running, and that's the worst thing you can do. By the time you get thirsty, you're already on the edge of dehydration. Your body's craving water, so you're behind the curve already. Best thing to do is drink regularly. Drink throughout your day or throughout your run. Now, I read a while back that the amount of water we have in our body changes as we age. Babies are maybe 75% water, but elderly people can be 45 to 55% water. So as we get older, our reservoir water in our bodies is less. The best thing to do, and what I do, is drink on a timed basis. Every 15 minutes, I have a timer on my phone. Every 15 minutes, my beep goes off. I will drink water. I try and drink 6 to 8 ounces of water every 15 minutes. And certainly the older you are, the more important that needs to be. You need to get that water regularly. Now, if you're a younger runner, maybe you can go longer. Maybe you can wait till you're thirsty because you're a young man, you got a big supply of water, and you can maybe not drink quite as often as every 15 minutes, but certainly being mindful and try to drink regularly so you avoid that thirst and getting behind and get dehydrated. So thanks again for watching. Hey, do you have any myths or misconceptions you've heard of you'd like to bring up? Please put a comment down below. Thanks again for watching. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to my channel and click that subscribe icon. Thank you so much and happy running.